All right, I am not encouraging you to read 1984. It is a grown-up book, but I think it is going to help us. It's going to help you understand The Giver more. So I'm going to read you like one page more just as background, because as I say, like some people are taking the week off and I want us all to be able to enjoy The Giver. So firstly, massive shout out to Nuri, who in an extraordinary moment of synchronicity began watching this video and reading the book alongside on April the 15th at 1:00. So how special that is. So again, remember the three things here. We've got like irony, language being meaning, what's said and what's meant being disconnected. Overlap between our world and this different world so that it's extrapolating from our world. It's like taking our world and transforming it into a society that reminds us of ours, but kind of ours when it's been run through the mill. And then finally, remember, in a dystopia, we're always making sure that when things are presented to us matter-of-factly, we realize that they are not normal. Even though that we're told them as though they're normal, we have to stop and think, hang on a sec, that's not normal. So this is the opening of 1984. It's a celebrated opening. And then read on a bit and notice all the things that are not normal. Remember as well, 1984, it's really easy to remember when it was written. It was written in 1948. So think about 1948 as being when George Orwell is writing this book, completing it actually on a tiny, tiny island in Scotland, and sick at the time, ill of tuberculosis, and also 1948, just after the end of World War II. Anyway, for what it's worth, that's the background against which he's writing. Okay, I'm going to read on just a little bit longer. Inside, he's gone into his apartment. Inside the flat apartment. Inside the flat, a fruity voice was reading out a list of figures, which had something to do with the production of pig iron. The voice came from an oblong metal plaque like a dulled mirror, which formed part of the surface of the right-hand wall. Winston turned a switch and the voice sank somewhat, though the words were still distinguishable. The instrument, the telescreen it was called, could be dimmed, but there was no way of shutting it off completely. He moved over to the window, a smallish, frail figure, the meagerness of his body merely emphasized by the blue overalls which were the uniform of the party. His hair was very fair, his face naturally sanguine, his skin roughened by coarse soap and blunt razor blades in the cold of the winter that had just ended. Outside, even through the shut window pane, the world looked cold. Down in the street, little eddies of wind were whirling dust and torn paper into spirals, and though the sun was shining and the sky a harsh blue, there seemed to be no colour in anything except the posters that were plastered everywhere. The black mustachioed face gazed down from every commanding corner. There was one on the house front immediately opposite. "Big Brother is watching you," the caption said, while the dark eyes looked deep into Winston's own. Down at street level, another poster, torn at one corner, flapped fitfully in the wind, alternately covering and uncovering the single word "Ingsoc." In the far distance, a helicopter skimmed down between the roofs, hovered for an instant like a blue bottle, and darted away again with a curving flight. It was the police patrol, snooping into people's windows. The patrols did not matter, however. Only the thought police mattered. Behind Winston's back, the voice from the telescreen was still babbling away about pig iron and the overfulfillment of the 9th three-year plan. The telescreen received and transmitted simultaneously. Any sound that Winston made above the level of a very low whisper would be picked up by it. Moreover, so long as he remained within the field of vision which the metal plaque commanded, he could be seen as well as heard. There was, of course, no way of knowing whether you were being watched at any given moment. How often or on what system the thought police plugged in on any individual wire was guesswork. It was even conceivable that they watched everybody all the time. But at any rate, they could plug in your wire whenever they wanted to. You had to live, did live, from habit that became instinct, in the assumption that every sound you made was overheard, and, except in darkness, every movement scrutinized. Winston kept his back turned to the telescreen. It was safer, though, as he well knew. Even a back can be revealing. Sorry, I'm going to do that again. It was safer, though, as he well knew, even a back can be revealing. A kilometre away, the Ministry of Truth, his place of work, towered vast and white above the grimy landscape. This, he thought, with a sort of vague distaste, this was London, chief city of Airstrip 1, itself the third most populous of the provinces of Oceania. He tried to squeeze out some childhood memory that should tell him whether London had always been quite like this. Were there always these vistas of rotting 19th century houses, their sides shored up with balks of timber, their windows patched with cardboard, and their roofs with corrugated iron, their crazy garden walls sagging in all directions? And the bombed sites, where the plaster dust swirled in the air and the willow herb straggled over the heaps of rubble, and the places where the bombs had cleared a larger patch, and there had sprung up sordid colonies of wooden dwellings like chicken houses. But it was no use. He could not remember. Nothing remained of his childhood, except a series of bright-lit tableaux occurring against no background and mostly unintelligible. The Ministry of Truth, Minitru in Newspeak was the official language of Oceania, for an account of its structure and etymology see appendix, was startlingly different from any other object in sight. It was an enormous pyramidal structure of glittering white concrete, soaring up terrace after terrace, 300 meters into the air. From where Winston stood, it was just possible to read, picked out on its white face in elegant lettering, the three slogans of the party. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. The Ministry of Truth contained, it was said, 3,000 rooms above ground level and corresponding ramifications below. Scattered about London, there were just 3 other buildings of similar appearance and size. So completely did they dwarf the surrounding architecture that from the roof of Victory Mansions you could see all 4 of them simultaneously. They were the homes of the 4 ministries, between which the entire apparatus of government was divided. The Ministry of Truth, which concerned itself with news, entertainment, education, and the fine arts. The Ministry of Peace, which concerned itself with war. The Ministry of Love, which maintained law and order, and the Ministry of Plenty, which was responsible for economic affairs. Their names in Newspeak, Minitru, Minipax, Minilove, and Miniplenty. The Ministry of Love was the really frightening one. There were no windows in it at all. Winston had never been inside the Ministry of Love, nor within half a kilometre of it. It was a place impossible to enter, except on official business, and then only by penetrating through a maze of barbed wire entanglements, steel doors, and hidden machine gun nests. Even the streets leading up to its outer barriers were roamed by gorilla-faced guards in black uniforms, armed with jointed truncheons. Okay, so that's where I wanted to read to. And I guess I wanted to get to this bit here, in terms of the distance between what's said and what's meant, because I'm sure you've noticed that the Ministry of Truth, which concerns itself with news, we're going to wonder how truthful that news is. The Ministry of Peace, quite boldly, is involved with war. The Ministry of Love maintains law and order, so that's the police. And the Ministry of Plenty, now we are going to guess that the Ministry of Plenty, we're going to guess this is a world of shortage. And this is the bit I really wanted. The Ministry of Love, this sentence here, the Ministry of Love was the really frightening one. You can imagine there's not a lot of love lost in the ministry of love. When we come to read The Giver together, which I will continue with next week, until then I'm going to do these little pre-videos, you'll see that having read just this little opening will really help you understand what's happening in The Giver.